to the Visibility Corner with yours truly, Barbara J. Beckley, as we come and we basically bring the gurus, the specialists, the coaches, the authors that are, I always say, the lighthouse of the world. Because if it wasn't for them coming into your life, maybe coming into my life, just being a part of your growing and your goals and your objectives in life, you wouldn't probably where you be where you need to be now. And what this particular show does, because every show that I do, there's always a focus and a purpose for it. And my focus is basically to bring on the experts, and through our talks, through meeting them, having a conversation with them, you get a chance to just get some tips. Yes, some tips and some insight as to how they use their visibility to uplift their business, to be shown in the marketplace of the business world and in life. I always tell people, if you're a hidden treasure, then everybody's not going to be able to learn from you, grow from you, just get the experience that you had in your life. I always tell people we are always going to help and give somebody a hope with our stories, with what we do in life. So why hide it? Because I always tell people, while you're hiding your treasure, you're hiding your gift. There's other people that are waiting for you to come and show that gift to the world because they need it for their own lives. So today we have a wonderful guest today, Mr. Eric M. Twiggs. He is the founding partners and president of the What Now movement. His mission is to build high-performing entrepreneurs, authors, and career professionals who are prepared for life's unexpected curveballs. And I just said about what's the hurricanes of life, but he's here to prepare you for that. Eric also hosts a weekly inspirational podcast titled The 30-Minute Hour. As a certified life and business coach, Eric has conducted over 22,000 coaching sessions. Wow. I mean, I had to put a pin on that and just say, OMG, we got a king here. We got a king. Helping executive leaders and entrepreneurs who have moved from feeling frustrated to fulfilling fulfillment. Have you felt that frustration? If you're trying to figure out, where do I start? Where do I go? What's my next move? Well, this King Eric, is going to help us out with that. So before we bring him on, we have to give our sponsor just a little bit of love. And then right after that, we will bring on King Eric. Hello, Mr. Eric.
Hey, Barbara, I have to tell you, I've been on a lot of podcasts, but no one has ever called me King Eric. So this is outstanding.
Yes. I have, yes. I love it. That makes me different than others. I like that.
Sure.
I always look, every time I bring on my women, I call them queens. And every time I bring on the men, I say king. So yes, you have been deemed as King Eric today.
That's fantastic.
Especially what you do in life and what you're doing for others. So yes, you deserve the crown. You deserve the crown. So first, before we even start the conversation, I just want to say, King, that I really appreciate you coming on the Visibility Corner with myself and really sharing, what you do. I mean, like I always tell people, when you have the expertise in the area that you do, what you're doing with people, that's your lighthouse of the world. You're showing light in certain areas that people need you to help them grow. And with the entrepreneurs that you work with, and being, like you said, a lot of people, even myself, I got to put my hands up. I have been very frustrated, even through I've been the journey of business for a long time. I still get frustrated. So when you come along and say, okay, let's see what's going on, let's help you out there, I'm glad that you're there for us. So before we start, just give us, I always like to hear the backstory. I like to hear, before you got to this kingdomship, this empire that you have, what made you just say, I want to help people in this area?
So the whole thing for me, it started at Hampton University when I was in college. It was my senior year. And I was having a conversation with my good friend Donnell. Now, Barbara, I have to admit, yeah, he and I were a little different in those days, right? He was like all about his purpose, and I was all about the party. And he would always give me a hard time and say, "Hey, man, Eric, you need to get serious and figure out like what it is you want to do with your life, and get serious, get focused." And I'm like, "Man, Donnell, loosen up. We've got plenty of time for all that. Are you coming to the frat party with me or not?" And so several weeks go by, I don't talk to him. But then I get a phone call from his mother informing me of the fact that he was killed in a car accident.
Oh, wow. Ooh. Mm,
Sent me a message. It sent me the message that maybe I don't have the time that I think
mm,
to do the things that I want to do. And literally from that moment on, I've been focused on time management. I've been focused on being as productive as possible. I've been focused on overcoming procrastination. And I've been really just thinking about being effective with the time that we have. That was a start. That's literally the main reason that you and I are talking right now. That experience that I had.
wow. I mean that's like, yes. I mean that's like a bomb, like boosh in your life. You know, your friend, and all of a sudden, here we go. This is what happens, and now you have to take a glance and look at yourself and say, let me do some self observation here. Let me really think. I mean, I just lost a true friend here, and I want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. It's just funny you said that part of it, because that happened to me at the age of 17. My dad, he was murdered at the age of
Hmm.
17. I was 17.
Hmm.
And at that time, I just had to tell myself at that young age, what are you going to do? Are you going to go left or right?
Hmm.
And I decided to go the right way just because of him, honoring him and getting my education, going to college, you know, making sure I had a good job, because I know that's all the things that he instilled in me. But before I was kind of like, I don't know, he's gone. My life feels like it's kind of crumbling here. I don't know what to do. And when that happened, it kind of put a turn on me too. So I totally get it when something like that happens in your life, how it can really make those changes. But you got to make the decision, right? I mean, like you said, procrastination, getting frustrated. If you want to stay in that zone, or you say to yourself, maybe I don't want to stay here. Maybe I want to do something different.
Oh, sure. You're right. That's why you can't. So a lot of people I talk to, they'll say, "Oh, Eric, I am such a procrastinator. I am always late. I am. Right. So you have to be careful with that, because that
Mm-hmm.
I am, that's an identity statement. And whatever
Mm,
comes after I am, you're going to become. And
mm-hmm.
procrastination, it isn't an identity. It's a habit. Right. And you can break the habit. You can make, like you said, with talking about the choice, like you can make a different choice if you want to.
Yes. And I always tell people that, I don't know, I always call it the cross. You know how you see that in the movies, they have those crossroads where people get to
Hmm.
that road and you're like, okay, which way do I go? Left, right, you know, each, and you're right in the center. We have to do that on an everyday basis when you think about it. Any decision you have to make, any, when you wake up in the morning, how you gonna go make by your day? Are you gonna be like, I'm upset because I don't feel good? Or are you gonna be like, you know what? This is gonna be a good day in spite of. I mean, those are the decisions that you have to make and say to yourself, that's going to lead you to where, basically, the route that you want to go during that day, and then during your whatever you're trying to do in life.
So, like, and I have a question for you. Like, as we're
Mhm.
talking about this, is just coming to mind. Right? Because I'm fascinated by this thing where two people can go through something that's traumatic, and one person uses it as a stepping stone to really get to that next level. I mean, even with the tragic incident that you experienced, and the other person uses that as a crutch to say why they can't do something. And whenever you challenge them, well, this happened, and oh my goodness, and da, 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 da. What are your thoughts on like why is it that some two people can go through the same thing but have like a different reaction?
Yeah, I think it depends on, it's well, for me, I think it's an individual thing, like you said, because on one hand, when my father passed, I was like, oh, woe was me. I was in that stage for a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where I was contemplating just, killing myself. I really was to that
Mm.
point. That's how bad I was. But then, like I said, something else happened right then and there. Somebody came and didn't even know me, my family, or anything, and told me that you don't need to be thinking what you need to be thinking, because you're a diamond in the rough, Barbara, and you're going to be
Mm.
somebody when you grow up. Now, my father used to tell me that. They didn't even know my
Mm.
father. They didn't know my mother. They didn't know
Wow.
anybody. And for them to say that, something powerful, that hit another chord in me. So I think the situations that happen helps you make those decisions. And if there's people around that's kind of pushing that, even though you might know them, it'll come in your life to kind of put that seed. I always say put the seeds out there. I think that pushes you to say you can go left or right. Plus, my mother, she was Sergeant Beckley, and she didn't play. So even if I wanted to sit down and procrastinate, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think it depends on each individual and how they look at things. I know I have a friend of mine, total opposite what you just said. Every time something comes up that she kind of needs to do in her life, she always has an excuse. She always goes back to, well, my mother didn't treat me. We had a bad relationship, so that's why I am the way I am. Sometimes I just want to tell her, okay, how long? You're in your 50s now. How long are you going to keep saying that? That's the thing. And your mother's passed. I mean, I hate to say it, and you're still holding on to that and don't want to do. So, like you said, Eric, I think it's something really deep, deep, deep. I always tell people that's the band-aid. You got to get a little bit deeper on why a person is the way, how they may move forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting
Yeah.
because like, even in the business world, I'll talk to somebody, and then they always had to bring up that major fleet or that major commercial account that they lost, and that things have never been the same, and they always bring it up, and it's just like, it's got to a point where I'll have people do what's called a lessons learned list when they have a setback.
Mm.
Okay, you have to
Ooh,
write down what are the things that you got out of this, the positive things that you learned that you'll be better in the future. And that's the
yeah.
only way I've been able to get people out of that kind of that spiral.
I love that. I love that you use that as part of your, like, counsel or coaching, because you need to, it's so easy. And this, we all know it's so easy to go straight to negative, straight to what didn't happen right, or somebody's going to
Right.
remind you of what you didn't do. I get a lot of that too sometimes. Well, remember when, Barbara, you did this? I was like, okay, can we let that's 5-10 years ago? We're still talking about this.
Yep.
And it's like sometimes you bring it to your memory, other people bring it to your memory. You're like, okay, that's over with. Well, I learned from that. I got through that. But I always look at the good and bad and the ugly of my life. I always call it the hurricanes and storms of life that rage. And I use it as a stepping stone of just a faith, and a stepping stone of a learning in my environment. So no matter what happens, and I mean, I know we have emotions and we go through things and it hurts. Sometimes it hurts hard. But I always say, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I spin on this? What is something that I can make the right decision, so somebody else is watching me? They'll know, okay, well, maybe I need to take that on instead of going the
Mm-hmm.
other route.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love your title. I just wanted to mention that you're procrastination prevention partner. I love it. I love it. And I think maybe now I was going to ask you, since you deal with people that, the discipline of, procrastination, everything, just saying procrastination, that seemed like it's a reason of its own for people to do what they don't do. Like you just said, well, I'm a procrastinator. So,
Yeah. So yeah, it can become that thing they hide behind,
mm,
but we have to, so the key thing is awareness, right? And that's why I wrote the book, The Discipline of Now, to heighten people's awareness on procrastination.
mhm,
And again, so people all say, the other thing they say all the time is, oh, I always procrastinate. And I have yet to meet a person that procrastinates in every area of their life, right? I've
mhm.
met people who procrastinate in business, but then when they're at home, they're on point. They get the kids to school, everything is on schedule. Then I get people who procrastinate on household tasks like cleaning the garage. But then when they get into a business setting, they're on point and they're teaching other people not to procrastinate. So the key though is awareness, right? And
Mhm.
being aware of your
Mhm.
patterns and
Yeah.
being aware of the things that trigger you to procrastinate. That's really, and that's the goal of the book, to really
Yeah.
help you to really start to think and look at, okay, every time I'm about to do my taxes, I start procrastinating. Or every time I'm about to clean the garage, I start procrastinating. And that's when you can start to win, because now once you're aware, you can put the fix in.
Mm. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was just thinking, just using myself as an example, that I know in some areas I procrastinate because and I'm getting better. I have to say, I'm getting better because of perfection. Because
Uh,
I want things to be a certain way, or I want it to look a certain way. And I keep saying, well, I can't get to because I want to make sure it's just like this, or I need to find somebody to help me with that. But I just have to make sure. And, I keep saying that, and then days, weeks, months, years pass, and I'm still talking about it, still hasn't got done yet.
yeah. So the perfectionism is one of the key things that holds people back. And one of the things I have to say about perfectionism is that you can't allow perfect to become the enemy of progress.
Mm.
Right. And so a lot of times, and I have friends that are in the military, and they have this thing like in the military, they teach you to be able to, especially in leadership, they teach you to be able to move forward when you have imperfect information.
Mm.
And they teach you that at best, you're going to have 70% of what you need to know. You're never going to have 100% at best case scenario. So you have to learn how to move forward with that imperfect information. And it doesn't have to be a big step, right? It could be, hey, I want to start a podcast. You don't have to research for years on the microphone and the camera and everything else. You can call somebody like Barbara who has a successful podcast.
Or King Eric. Yes.
Okay. but but yeah, so the key is that the small steps count. And this
Yeah.
is a big thing. I'm glad you're bringing up perfectionism because that is a big thing that holds people back and keeps them stuck.
Yes. And I have to battle that all the time because, the one thing I'm always looking at too, and just I want you to get a little bit into this about visibility part of it for your own lane. But one thing some people start looking at others, okay? They see certain things that they have and they're like, okay, ooh, I need to have, I need to be different than them. So I need to make sure this is just right. So that, stops you because you're so getting caught up in what somebody else is doing and wanting to make sure it's better or whatever, in that lane. So I think that's what stops a lot of us as people in business to move forward because we start looking at others and saying, okay, I got to get it just like them or I got to get it better than them. And then you start to take your time to do it. But if you just say, like you said, Eric, just take that one step, just or delegate something that you really shouldn't be doing. Now that's another thing that I think a lot of us do is we're trying to do everything and we need to delegate some of this stuff to, I always say, the gurus that do it, and let them do it so you can concentrate on what you need to concentrate on.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I always say like just because something has to be done doesn't mean that you have to do it, right? And that's something I've had to learn, right?
Yeah.
Because I can, because nobody does it like Eric. That
Yeah.
was that was the thing I would always say. Nobody does it like King Eric, and so
Or just like
uh,
the King Eric. Yeah.
right. But King Eric was getting tired, and King Eric was getting frustrated. King Eric was getting burnt out. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's not a good path. So it's better to outsource those, especially those things that are outside of your zone of genius,
Mm.
those things that
Yeah.
you really aren't great at. And
Yeah.
then that frees you up to focus on the things that you are great. And I wanted to say something quickly on, you mentioned this idea of comparison, right?
Mm-hmm.
And looking at other people. So like the key is to run your own race. And my son, I have a 10-year-old son, he runs track. And one of the things we're trying to help him focus on is that you're really not competing against the other runners. You're really competing against your personal best time. So we track his time. And it's a victory if his time from the current meet is better than the time from the previous meet at the end of the day. So and I think the same thing applies in business. You're really focused on your personal best and it's not about trying to compete with somebody else and, oh, somebody else is doing this, so I have to do that. So that's my thought on that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, King, because I always tell people that we all have our own gifts in us that we were gifted in life. And this is what I always mention. I mentioned this example. Somebody told me, they said, that's really interesting, Barbara. I said, okay, think about it. When you were born by yourself. I mean, your mother had you, but you didn't have a lot of people around. It was just you coming out, and you were that gift of life that came out. So why all of a sudden, after you're born, you always feel like you need to be like everybody else or be with everybody else all the time because you have your gift of genius. Nothing's wrong with networking. Nothing's wrong with getting together in partnership with people. But when it comes to the point where you feel like you have to take on what they're doing, or they're better, you feel like they're better than you in different areas, you got to look back at the point that when you were born, you were on your own at that time with your own gifts that you have within you. So I always tell people they have to remind yourself of that, because we get caught up with everybody else, and it's like, no, you're unique in your own way. Be that uniqueness. Yes.
Yeah, you don't have the full story either. You don't know
You
what
don't know
they
what they
went through. Yeah, so it's like podcasters, right? There people like Barbara that just, they're naturals. Yeah, it look
give
like, yeah, but
credit.
Barbara's been doing this for a while and had repetitions and
Yeah.
has gotten certain so it's a process.
Yeah.
So you can't expect to compare yourself to someone who's been doing this for years, and this is the second your second podcast episode. So
Yeah.
it's so you don't it's not an accurate apples to apples thing when you play that comparison game.
Yeah. And you got to be open to learn. I mean, I always tell people I don't care until the day that I always say, get my wings, that I'm going to be forever learning. And if I tell myself I know everything, which that's one of the, I feel like it's a bad word when somebody says, I know that already. I was like, I hear that,
Yeah,
King Eric, and I was like,
yeah,
stop. Just they might have a different take on it, even though if you might know it, there might be a different thing you can get. I can get so much information from you, Eric, that what you're doing in life. And some things you might be similar things that we do, but I know I can still learn something from you because you bring something to the table. So we always have to be open for that, always.
absolutely. And some of the highest performers that I've been around, they are sitting in the front row in the seminar taking pages of notes. And I'm looking at them like, you could be teaching this, and they've got pages and pages of notes there, trying to learn and always trying to get better. And then some people who struggle, they're the ones that are saying, oh, I already knew that before I got here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a mindset.
I think, and then going back to procrastination, and just asking you, when you're dealing with your clients, do you start with the mindset part of it? You talked a little bit, probably a little bit about that as well.
Yes, yes. Because I learned a long time ago, like, because we start getting into like their business and the financials. If you don't address the mentality first, they'll continue to be stuck, right?
Mhm.
So it's funny you say, because I have a model. It's a 5-step model. I call it the procrastination prevention pyramid, and the first level on that pyramid is your attitude,
Mm.
because your attitude is at the foundation of the pyramid. So your attitude is at the foundation of your success.
Mhm.
And what happens is, all the studies show that 80% of the typical person's self-talk is negative.
Mm.
That's that 80%. And so we just have this habit of negativity. And
Mhm.
especially if you're in business, because you've been brought up to solve problems. You're focused on the problems, but what happens is you become a pessimist, and then you're more likely to procrastinate. So you have to, anytime you have a bad habit, you have to replace it with a better one. And then the better habit is really looking for the wins, right? So I literally have people I work with, they write their wins down and track them throughout the week. It could be small. It could be, I got a 5-star Google review, or I did my first podcast episode. But what happens is those wins start to stack. And now you're starting to offset that negativity. And then when something bad happens, you can go back to your list of wins and you have perspective that it's not all bad. This is just an
Yeah.
event. So no, you brought up a great point. The mind, you have to really focus on your mindset and make sure it's in the right place before you can move forward.
And I love what you created the pyramid. The first thing on the top, like you said, is attitude. Your
Yes.
attitude has to be right. And that, I think that's in anything we do. If you have a bad attitude, a lot of the things gonna fall short,
Yes.
as you probably
Sure.
seen with others, and even with myself. I always tell people, learn if you don't learn from anybody else, because some people are like, why are you talking about me? I said, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna talk about you. I'll talk about me. I have no problem. Learn from Barbara's mistakes. Then we have to worry about getting it on you, and you have to say, well, Barbara said it on you. But yeah, I always tell people, learn from each other and have that attitude, in check in order to move forward. Now, King Eric, I wanted to ask you, because I knew you have some things that you do. You have like a roadmap to making more money by maximizing your time, and you have some blueprints. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, so yeah, the roadmap or the blueprint is really, it's the procrastination prevention pyramid, right? So that's the kind of the cure if you follow that, right? It's the roadmap to help you to overcome that procrastination. So I talked about attitude, like the next on the rung is your awareness, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you can't fix something that you don't know about. You can't fix something that you lack an awareness to have. And we all have blind spots. So
Yeah.
there's certain things that you need somebody from the outside, like a mentor or a coach or a mastermind member, to bring to your attention. But being aware, having the right levels of awareness, and we already talked earlier about looking at the patterns of when you're procrastinating, having that awareness. And then the next step on the pyramid is animation, and that has to do with like your energy levels.
Okay.
And so if you think about it, most of the time when you procrastinate, you're in a low energy cycle, right? You're tired, and then when you're tired, you don't have the energy. You're more likely to get away from your disciplines. It's like it's like if you go to the grocery store when you're hungry, you're gonna get away from your disciplines. It's the same thing. So you constantly have to, you know, are you exercising consistently?
Mm,
Are you eating the right foods that are going to give you energy?
yeah.
Are you prioritizing recovery? Are there times where you just have to get away? On the podcast, one of the successful entrepreneurs said, you know what? He goes to a movie from time to time by himself. He just gets away, goes to a
That's,
movie by himself, a matinee, just to get away. That's his recovery, where he's not thinking about the business and all of that. But that helps with your energy, and your mood is better and all of that. So you have animation, then you have automation, right? We already said it earlier. Just because something has to be done doesn't mean that you have to do it. So that's
mm,
how can you set up systems? Maybe that's delegating, maybe that's using technology where things are happening without you touching them. So you can work on your business instead of in the business. And everybody's not tugging on you, asking you if you got a minute. So automation, we get the detail on that. And then action or activity is at the top, because you can't get to the top without taking action. You can meditate, light candles, do your vision board, but at some point you have to do something. So you so the key there is prioritizing what are those tasks that line up with your ultimate goal, and what's the plan to make sure that you're addressing those on a daily basis.
yes. Wow. First of all, thank you. You dropped some good, just bombs there, some good bombs for us and some golden nuggets. I like how you said, because I see this all the time. In fact, I used to do it every year about the vision boards. And it's like, oh, it looks all nice. You put the pictures there, it looks all whatever. And then you stash it aside somewhere, or you don't put it in front of you. And next thing you know, it's like they're in the basement.
Right.
And then you didn't take no action on it.
Right.
So yes, action is the key. One thing is to say, I want to do it and write it down. The other thing, okay, the other part of it is the action. I think a lot of us do that one part. It's easy to write it down. It's easy to say what you're going to do. And then, but the other part of it, the biggest part is just putting some action to it. I always say put some feet to it.
Absolutely. And I always tell people, like, if you have a vision board and you don't commit to taking action, your board will just become a picture of all the things you don't have.
And then you get depressed.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Then you got to go through a whole cycle of going through
Right.
your thing of saying,
Right.
okay, I gotta get my attitude right so I can get the awareness going, and then I can get the animation to take the action
You got to start all over again. Yeah. So,
all over again.
and
Wow.
I'm not against vision board, right? I have one.
Mhm.
I think if you use it right and you commit to action, it can help and can remind you and keep you focused
Yeah.
on where you're trying to go. But I think I know there's a movie that came out, The Secret, a while back, and
Yeah.
people just got this thing of, okay, all I have to do is think about it and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I wish it was that easy.
I know.
Well, it hasn't worked out for me that way. We'll just say that.
Me either. Me either. It's like, okay, I want $1 million. Okay, I don't see the benches yet. But
I don't see the Ferrari in the driveway. I had it on my board. For some reason, it's not in the driveway yet. I don't understand. So,
no, it's just still over here in the townhouse that I stay in. So yeah, so you're right. So we got to put action to it in order to see it grow, to see it come accomplish to something. And you can't be afraid of work. I tell people just can't be afraid of it. It has to be done, no matter what you do. So King Eric, I just want to say just one more thing before, because I want to take myself down for a few seconds so you can give any lasting thoughts for the audience. But what is one thing, maybe a tip or something that you learned through your business, through your lane, that helped you with your visibility portion?
Yeah, I mean the big thing is with the podcast, the 30-minute hour. And here's the thing with that, right? Because like so we'll record live and sometimes you don't see people liking and commenting every now and you think people aren't watching, but that thing has taught me that you just never know who's watching. Because I've had this happen a few times where there's someone I end up on their show and they're very well known and they tell me, Eric, yeah, I've been watching you for a while and yeah, I see what you're doing. I'm like, wow, you've been watching me? And that's happened more than once. And it just, that's why it's good to have something that you're doing consistently that's getting out there. If it's a podcast, I would strongly recommend. Even if you're doing videos, you just never know because there are people who don't like, who don't comment, who don't share, who don't retweet, but they watch. And I've had people see me on other podcasts. They Googled procrastination and they saw my man, they mentioned it to me. And so you never know. You just have to stay consistent. So that my answer would be yes. I would recommend getting a podcast, getting yourself out there and getting your message to the world.
Thank you. That's a wonderful tip. And you're right. Just because you're not getting the likes and the hearts and everything, that doesn't mean people are not watching you. I found that out too. There's always somebody watching. You don't even know. And then all of a sudden, like King Eric right there, he's brought to different podcasts and he has his own. So, and consistency is the key. So, King Eric, I'm going to take myself down for a few seconds. I want you just, share any other last thoughts, and then we'll come up and let everybody know how they can contact you.
Sure. So one of the things I like to say is that clarity is the starting point of success. It is so important to be clear on where you're trying to go. And then so once you're clear, you can reverse engineer, right? So once you're clear that I want to get to, this is the destination that I want to get to, right? And so I work with people and we'll start planning for where you want to be 5 years from now. I have them time travel 5 years later. This is, you're happy, you're content, you're fulfilled. What does that look like? What are the exact things that you have? And then from there, we reverse engineer. What's the next step that I need to take in that direction? And then what you're doing, your to-do list matches your ultimate vision and where you're trying to go. So really, that's what I hope everybody gets from this part of the show is that clarity is the starting point of success. You really have to be clear on where it is you're trying to go. And if you're struggling to accomplish that, mentor, get the right coach, get into the right mastermind group, and they can help you to gain that clarity.
Yes, King Eric gave us the goods. Thank you, sir, so much for coming on the show. Clarity, yes, very important. I'm glad you ended with that. So basically, everybody, if you're watching the Visibility Corner today at King Eric, he had gave you a lot of tips, a lot of tips. So I want you to kind of look at the show back, tell other people about it, and just let you know how you can start if you have that problem with procrastination or you get frustrated. Eric gave some wonderful tips there. So, Eric, it's been a pleasure to basically talk to you, have this conversation, and I've learned and grown so much in the 30 minutes. So, I'm going to take a lot of the things that you told us, and I'm going to put it into my own life. So, thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you again for having me. It's truly been an honor to be on your show.
And just to let everybody know, you can contact Eric. I have his email address below and also his website. So this is what I'm going to say. I'm not going to, somebody told me a long time ago, don't tell people what to do, suggest. So I suggest that you reach out to King Eric if you see that is needed. He helps you in all the areas. This is not just business, but in life. So it works both ways. So just don't say, well, I don't really need a business person. Well, he's both. He's business and works in life. And procrastination is everywhere. So I don't care what you're doing in life. One thing we do, we need to stop the madness on that and figure out what's really holding us to that. So again, Eric, thank you so much. You will see another episode of Visibility Corner with myself, Barbara J. Beckley. And if you want to come on the show, just reach out to me. I'm known in all the social media platforms and just messenger me and we can get you on the calendar. Again, thank you so much again and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.